Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Lewis. I hope you're all safe and well. Now on today's episode, I think I've brought out 3 jazz gems, or at least potential jazz gems for you. I will talk about each album in turn and some of my thoughts as to why I happened to make the purchases. I'm going to highlight what I believe are the standout tracks. And yeah, let's start at the beginning. The first album today is a 1971 release. It's by a gentleman called Doug Carn, and the album's entitled Infant Eyes. Yeah, I like that cover. Nice little family snapshot there. The kid's face absolutely has me in stitches. Yeah, just it's just a great expression, and yeah, every time I see the cover for this album, I just start smiling instantly. So yeah, I really like this album. It's been quite some time since I've given it a listen to, so it was really nice to do it on for this video, just to revisit it. So yeah, super pleased with it. Yeah, no regrets with the purchase, definitely not. So just to address the elephant in the room, this particular album, it's got quite a few compositions on it which let's just say in polite terms are homages to some of the work of Coltrane and Davis. Now usually I really despise when artists do that. Sometimes I just feel, well, it really, it so depends on the execution. It's not necessarily doing homages as such. It's the execution of it which is more important for me. Now this one straddled that particular line, and I think it done it absolutely superbly, in the sense of the compositions on here, where it does have some of the Coltrane and Davis motifs in them. For me at least, and the way I heard them, they became tunes within themselves. So yes, they undoubtedly they've got some influence from those two artists, but the pieces which they created from it is a standalone piece. So yeah, I'm gonna, I'm not gonna get like hung up about it. It's just something to note. So if you are thinking of buying this or listening to it, realize in advance that there is a heavy slice of 2 of the greatest performers in jazz ever as the influence on some of the material on this album. So just be aware of that. But yes, going back to my their interpretation of some of the motifs from Coltrane and Davis. Now they do their reinterpretations in a respectful, and as I said, different enough from the original that yeah, you know, they're chalk and cheese kind of thing. So when I was listening to this album, there are parts on here, some of the compositions and some of the musicianship on display, literally made some of the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. It really resonated with me, which is a brilliant thing. It's always good when whatever form of art that you're into resonates with you to the point where you have kind of like a physical reaction to it. That can't be a bad thing, and this one certainly did it for me. Yeah, just a super enjoyable. It's straight jazz. It's got elements of it, but it's more spiritual jazz, this particular one. So I would say, with a caveat, that a lot of these spiritual jazz albums, the recordings are not the best. So even if you get like a repressed version, it may sound like the group are still underwater or slightly muddy or dirty, despite it being a clean vinyl. In this particular case, this sounds so dynamic, this album, this pressing. Super pleased to have it in my hands. Yeah, it was just a really enjoyable experience. I found this to be a mesmeric piece, with so much feeling on display. It feels like my soul was educated by the experience. Now, I'm not going to retract any of that. There are albums in my collection which I prefer to this one, but in terms of a listening experience and just as a standalone piece, I just thought it was a super enjoyable experience, and hopefully you will feel the same when you get to hear it for yourselves. So the highlight tracks, in my opinion, on this particular album are Infant Eyes, Moonchild, and Acknowledgement. Now, there are at least one, possibly two other tracks on this album which I could have quite easily have mentioned, but I want you to discover those tracks for yourselves. So if you haven't heard this album before, give it a go, see what you think. Feel free to let me know down in the comment section what your thoughts are, but for me this one's an absolute winner. It goes in and out of print periodically, so if you don't get it this time round, and I think the prices are creeping up on this, it'll probably be re-released in another 5 to 8 years. Definitely it will be re-released and you will be able to get a copy of it. So see what you think in terms of prices, but I'm super glad to have it in my collection. The notables on this album are Miss Jean Carn, who's the lady here, fabulous singer in her own right, George Harper on sax, and Bob Frazier on trumpet. So well done all round. Splendid album. Yeah, please consider it at least. So that was today's first album. The second album is a more recent release. It's actually a 2018 release, and it's the Alexi Hanola Quintet, and it's a self-titled album. There you go. I like that cover. It's got everything I want in a jazz cover. It's dynamic. I like to see musicians doing their thing on album covers. It's just one of my things, and this one certainly does it. I'm just thinking, would it have looked better in the kind of black and white rather than colour? Maybe. I think I might have preferred it in black and white, but hey ho, it's a very small complaint. Now, before I get on to the album itself, which I did enjoy, I have a bias, a negative bias towards modern jazz, contemporary jazz, anything which has been released pretty much in the last 10 years. I have bought some of the material, some of the better albums out there, but I'm always hesitant, and the reason is, and pretty much why I'm a back catalogue person rather than, new releases, is like any one of us, I'm susceptible to hype. That's kind of why I like older stuff, because it's been out in the ether for so much longer that the checks and balances type of thing has already been done. So yeah, I tend not to buy new material. I don't mind missing out on it and maybe buying it 15-20 years later, so when I really made a decision as to whether I like it or not. But this one, when it came across my radar and I gave it a listen to, I enjoyed it so much. I just said to myself, look, just get your hands on it. You probably be making a mistake if you don't get it, because you may not see this for 20-30 years. You just never know. So yeah, that's part of my thought process on purchasing this album. So in terms of the album itself, this album put a smile on my face. I really liked it, and I was honestly taken aback by actually how good it is. Now, I should address the elephant in the room with this particular album, and again it comes down to nostalgia, and it comes down to homages. Now, with this particular one, and probably the reason why I just finally decided, look, you just get your hands on it, it's the obvious reason to me is I bought it because it sounds like a much older piece than it actually is. It has a kind of mid to late 60s sound about it, which is my wheelhouse of jazz. So, you know, I'm susceptible to it. So they do it really well on this album. So it was kind of inevitable. Now, if this album was a 15-year-old album rather than a 3-year-old, would I have less reticence about it? Maybe, maybe not. But that's just some of my thought processes. Now, it is important, as I said, that to know that this is a homage piece. Although the actual compositions are original, barring one on here, they have a sound of a bygone era. So where do we put the credit? I'm not sure. Is it with the composer of the tune? Is it the musicians? I don't know. Because if you apply that to classical, it's like, you know, tunes which have been composed from quite a few centuries ago, and just because it's played by a modern artiste, does that devalue it? Well, no, it doesn't. Nobody will criticize it in that sense. So why do I feel that way with jazz? As I said, I'm just throwing it out there, my thoughts. I'm not saying that I've sussed this out completely. As you can tell by my meanderings, obviously not. So, yeah. But from the musician standpoint, you definitely get the sense that the musicians involved certainly were enjoying themselves in making this particular album. And yeah, you can hear it for yourself. It's a lovely piece. It really is. Oh, I'm just reading one of my notes here. So my final kind of thought with it is, and overwhelmingly I really like this album, is my one caveat or reservation is, do I like it because of the nostalgia it invokes? Will I still enjoy this particular album in a year, 3 years, a decade? That remains to be seen. Absolutely right, and that's wise words from me. Because yeah, if this is a wait and see thing, I certainly like it at this moment in time. But let's see how I feel in a number of years' time. Will I still rate this particular album? So yeah, it remains to be seen. Now, the tracks that I would highlight from this particular album are Silver Maze, Bozza 69 and Rudy. All of those are really nice tracks, so please give them a listen, see what you think. You may struggle to get hold of this album, not because it's particularly expensive, it's because more than likely this was done in a relatively small press. But if you are interested in it, you probably will be able to pick it up on CD relatively easily. Vinyl, you're going to have to do some searching, but I don't think it's going to be that expensive if you can get hold of it. Now, the notables on this album, and please forgive me, because I think I'm just trying to think. Yes, this is our like Scandinavian names. I think in Norwegian in particular. So I'm going to give it a go, see what happens. So it's Miku Gunnar Karl Jalnanen on trumpet. I've probably butchered that name. Did you hear the uncertainty in my voice there? I had no confidence in saying that name. And Mikael Jakobsen on piano, both of who do a fantastic job on this album. So congratulations to all those involved in this album. I, for one, at this point, yeah, no regrets. But we'll wait and see how I feel about it in like 5 years' time. But hopefully it will stand the test of time. That's my hope anyway. So that's today's second album. Today's third and final album is an absolute gem from one of my favorite artists. As you may know from previous episodes, I'm not really a person who has the complete catalogue of one particular artist. I tend to spread myself out a bit, wider. But one of the artists I do happen to have quite a few albums of is Mr. Lloyd Mcneill, and this is the Lloyd Mcneill Quartet, and the album's entitled Asha, and it's a 1969 release. So yeah, kind of like abstract art kind of cover there. Kind of can make out what's going on, but I'm still not entirely sure because there's a whole kind of weird perspective thing going on. Now with this album, I found this to be a wonderfully frenetic journey through jazz flute, and that's one of my favorite instruments as well. So I've put underlined. Of course, you don't have to, but I would strongly suggest giving this album a listen to. Yeah, normally that's in my kind of like conclusion area, but I've got that out of the way in my notes really quickly. I really enjoyed the experience, obviously. There is a high level of concentration and dexterity on display here, and after several playthroughs, I still find it hard to reconcile how good this album is and why Mr. McNeil isn't given the standard in jazz that he richly deserves. Who did he offend? Question mark. Yeah, it happens particularly in jazz as well as other particular genres. Yeah, I really like his output, and I think it's a real shame that perhaps he doesn't get the kudos that he richly deserves. I think this is a genuine man of talent. He's a Renaissance man. He can do, I think he's a visual artist as well as an oratory one. So, yeah, he's got a lot of strings to his bow. Certainly an interesting character. An enjoyable journey through sassy and carefree compositions played with gusto. So yeah, this is if you like a jazz flute and you want something different, you want something on the high end side of things. I'd be kind of hard pressed to think of somebody off the top of my head who smashes Mr. McNeil out of the ballpark. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head. Yeah, so if you haven't heard of Mr. McNeil and his quartet, please give some of his material a listen to, see what you think, see if it will fit into your jazz collection. The tracks that I would recommend from this album would be As a Matter of Fact, which is absolutely gorgeous, Effervescent, which is again superb, and St. Margaret's Church. Those are the three tracks that I would recommend from this album. The notables on this album are Gene Rush on piano. Oh my goodness, the piano playing on here is something it's just astonishing. And Eric Gravatt on drums. So yeah, again, both of those gentlemen had an absolutely terrific contribution to this album. But please do have a listen to it. It's for your own good. Please have a listen. So that's the last album for today. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode. It was, well, from my point of view, it was really enjoyable. As I said, I think the three albums today, they will be available. It's just how much effort you put into it. They shouldn't be that expensive. Please do give them a listen. So if you found the episode somewhat informative, mildly entertaining, please consider liking, subscribing and sharing. It's been an absolute honour from my part. So until the next episode, please do look after yourselves, stay safe, and I will see you soon. So until then, bye bye.